here at BGSS, and we love talking about the work that we did there, and just because of its pure impact. But you're going to hear about that from Rachel directly. So it's always exciting to do innovative work with technology and have real great practical applications of that. And we just love hearing these stories. So thank you so much to Rachel for coming, and we really hope you enjoy this talk.
Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction, and I would reflect those comments about working with BGSS. It was a great collaboration. Really enjoyed the 18 months that it took for this project. So I'm hoping I can do it some justice today. So I'm Rachel Smith. I am Embryology Innovation and AI Lead at Care Fertility. I am a clinical scientist. I am not from the field of AI. I am just a normal embryologist who has adopted this as my specialism. So I was going to talk about Care Fertility's products. So that's my declaration of interest. So to give you a little bit of an insight into Care Fertility, we are a fertility provider. We've been operating for over 25 years in the field. We are largely based in the UK, but we have just recently acquired clinics abroad. We have 3 in Spain, and we are also in the US, in Charlotte, in North Carolina. So just to give you a little bit of information about infertility, because it affects so many people. Globally, 17.5% people will be affected, and that equates to about 1 in 6 people. So there is a need to consider how we can best improve our outcomes for our patients. So AI has been quite the explosion in our field. We've done a lot of work because of 2 improvements: computing power and the ability to use big data sets. We collect a lot of our medical records electronically, and we use images such as ultrasound and time-lapse for our embryos. And this, you already know, we can use the images quite easily for AI analysis, and we use algorithms already within our field, so AI can adapt to this process. But how can we help a patient have an increased chance of having a baby? Well, we can do this indirectly by looking at patient pathways or the fertility journey, and specifically tailoring that journey to the patient based on their metadata. Or we can look directly at the gametes, the eggs and sperm, and the embryos to see if we can get an inference of quality by using the AI and a potential of that gamete or embryo to make a baby. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we can't really talk about how AI influences embryo selection without considering its history. So to date, the general way that we grade an embryo is based on morphology. Embryo selection is one of the key practices because it can help reduce the time it takes for that patient to get to pregnancy. It doesn't change their cohort of embryos. If they've got a selection of embryos, it just helps us to identify the best embryo in the quickest time possible. So morphology is done by the embryologist. It looks specifically at the image of the embryo and grades it based on a set of rules. These rules can be different between different clinics, so it makes it very hard to measure whether they are working effectively. And some of the literature out there will obviously infer that it's a subjective measure of an embryo's competence, and it's weakly correlated with live birth outcome. So the other method to assess an embryo's quality is to consider its morphokinetics. This is only possible with time-lapse, and this is where a camera will sit inside an incubator. It takes an image every 10 minutes, and over the course of an embryo's culture over 5 to 6 days, this can generate a huge amount of data. It takes it in up to 11 focal planes, so it gives an impression of a 3D measure, the same as you would look through a microscope using a focus to get the image, to get all of those slices. This allows us to look at relationships or developmental patterns and annotate key events like the time that an embryo takes to achieve 2-cell, 4-cell, 8-cell, with it furthering on to blastocyst. So this helps us to build algorithms based on those embryos, over thousands of embryos assessed, which ones made a baby, which ones did not, and what are the patterns within those developments that will indicate to an embryologist a selection ranking. So we have already algorithms in place. So how can AI help us to select the best embryo? Well, there's very many different methods that we can apply to perform this task, and it's normally based on the equipment that a lab might have. Some labs might only have a microscope with a camera, so they may only be able to take a static image. Some will have this time sequence, having a time-lapse incubator in place. So the AI technology will be developed based on the differing types of images that we collect. All of them will involve machine learning and deep learning, and some of them are a full encapsulated end-to-end system which will annotate the embryos and provide an assessment of the image, and some will use parts of those processes. Understanding what you want to predict is also highly important. Are you looking for the ploidy status, the normal chromosomal status of that embryo, ranking it for the chance of it to be abnormal or normal? Are you a clinic that puts back embryos quite early in their culture and want to know whether that embryo will make a blastocyst or not? Or are you going for the gold standard, which is live birth outcome, which you're looking to see if that patient will be taking a baby home or not from that embryo? So I'll talk a little bit about our collaboration with BGSS. We were very fortunate to work with them, and I mirror the same speakers' information on how quickly they were scientists, like myself. I can't say that I picked up the AI as quickly as they picked up the biology, so they were a very highly motivated team. We were fortunate, because we're a big group of clinics, to have access to over 63,000 embryos with images and annotated data. We've been using time-lapse for over 10 years, very successfully, with our experienced embryologists identifying all of these annotations of 18 key events. Our mission was to be able to auto-annotate as good as an experienced embryologist and have comparable results to some of the commercial offerings on the market, which we were dismissing because we had bigger data sets than some of them had built their own data on. So this was what also inspired us to undertake this operation. It needed to be accurate and reproducible and save our embryologists time. Just to give you some context, annotations take 2 minutes per embryo over the course of 5 days, and with lots of embryos, if you were analysing this, would be 4 days or working days per every 1,000 embryos. And in care, we've reviewed 26,000 embryos a year. So it's a lot of time saving that this can help us with. So we reviewed all our data that we held in our time-lapse equipment, the embryoscope, and then went ahead to train the auto-annotation. This actually resulted in nearly 500 million images, because there were over 5,000 per embryo, with all the focal planes. We built the auto-annotation model. It also had thresholding in, because we wanted to make sure that the auto-annotation was confident. So we do ask for a second opinion from our experienced staff if the auto-annotation model is not confident with its output. We then used these automated annotations to drive our statistical model for ranking embryos for live birth, and we compared the output of prediction against manual annotations. We reviewed the time-saving element, which equated to about 6 months of embryology time across the group, and identified that the model, when using the auto-annotation, was as predictive as manual annotations from an experienced embryologist. Oh, and we also won a National Tech Award. Perhaps I should have squeezed that in. So well done to BGSS. So there are other offerings out there that do exactly the same as our model. We are very fortunate that we have a huge data set to be able to build this, but it's not always the case for standalone clinics. We do feel very privileged. So there are other alternatives available on the market that do exactly what we've done, but within the technology, the time-lapse incubator. And if we're looking at some of the commercial products, we've got an offering here from IVF 2.0, which is looking at an image of a blastocyst to determine ploidy status, whether that embryo's normal or abnormal by looking at heat maps. You can see the interpretation of the images. And then a big provider of time-lapse equipment has produced a full end-to-end system that looks at auto-annotation and the images themselves to provide a ranking score. These are supposed to be decision support tools for the embryologist. There's always an override button. It's there to help make a decision on embryos and not to overrule the experienced embryologist. So there are many commercial offerings. We would advise anybody who's undertaking this to ask if it's possible to retrain on their own data, and if not, then in-house validation is essential. So looking to the future, or in the not too distant future, automation of the lab is underway. We've already had the first baby born in New York from automated ICSI, which is where you use needles thinner than a human hair to pick up a sperm and inject it into an egg. They used a PlayStation handset to do this, which I find is amazing. So this is not far away. We've got AI that selects sperm, and these two parts of the equation together will help to improve automation in this field. The ultimate kind of goal is to have a lab on a chip. This will use different technologies like microfluidics. It will use time-lapse imaging and also metabolomics, where we look for the excreted medium and we assess the metabolism of the embryo and its impact on its potential. So all of these things will create a huge amount of data, so will only ever be able to be incorporated into our systems with AI. Thank you very much.